Yes. Well, this is just two circles. Yeah.
So on yours, can you X out that little black and blue box, because it's not on my screen. There you go. So you ready? All right. Welcome, everyone. Like big full room, we had to add chairs. That's wonderful. So welcome to the June 2025 meeting of the Houston chapter of Electric Vehicle Association. Nice to see lots of old familiar faces and nice to see new faces, folks that have come on in and want to see what's going on here in Houston. So there has been a lot going on at the national level as well. So I've got some slides here that should go out to folks. Folks online can hear me okay?
I can.
Anyone wanna? Robin, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Loud and clear.
You can give me a thumbs up. You're. Or am I? All
Can
right.
you?
Yeah, the microphone's kind of in the middle of the table here. I just want to be sure. So anyone who's in the room who's asking questions should be heard on that microphone there. All right. So we've had lots of events going on at the national level. And here in Houston, it was really a lot of fun in National Drive Electric Month. And so here you can see some of the things. You can also, of course, go to the national website and read. They put a lot of things in their blog, which is really nice. And if I forget to mention it later, I want to be sure to mention it now. We have a new national president. So we want to thank Elaine for what she's done over the last 3 years as president. Let's keep going here. We've started up Batteries and Brews here in Houston. And I see some of the faces here in the room. We're there at the one that we had at the watershed. And yeah, good, Robin. And so we would like to invite everyone to the next one. We have the date on the screen.
Coming up.
It's going to be on a later page here of the PowerPoint. Okay. So yeah, there it is, June 29th from 1 to 3 p.m. Okay. And there's the address, 4820 West Belford. And so we had a nice time at the first one at that location. And so we welcome everyone to come on out, and very informal. Everyone's on their own as far as what they'd like to drink or eat. So it's a lot of fun here in Houston to have our own radio show run by our Vice President, David Lowy. And so that's great for folks who can tune in on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. for half an hour. And David had a really good remote speaker this last Wednesday, and we're going to be asking him more about his Hudson Valley Community College and what kind of EV education he's got going on for young people. So that'll be really good once we get more info from him, help out folks in Houston. And of course, it's always good to join the national organization if you're so inclined. Our local chapter here doesn't charge any dues, but we do get a little bit back from the national folks. And we just use that to print out some materials and things like that. Folks know that we're all volunteer organization. And here is the news about Elaine stepping down after 3 years. And so Terry Kirsch has been appointed by the board to move up from vice president to president, and some other officer information there. So of course you can go to the national organization site, myeva.org, and get all the news there. Here in the room, plus a lot of times at events, we have the one sheet that comes out from the national organization, and those get old real fast. So I always encourage people to take those and spread them around to friends and neighbors and so forth, because the vehicles that are out get that are printed on that get outdated very quickly. And in terms of vehicles that you can be interested in, I'd like to point out one of our longtime members, Emma, is looking at upgrading her EVs. So folks in the room can talk to her if somebody's in the market for one, because she wants her old EV to go to a good home. Serve very well, but she's anxious to get something that can help more and smart capabilities. Opportunities. If anyone is good at Instagram, we'd like to get some more info out on that, because currently we do put things out on Facebook and on our webpage, but Instagram will be good as well. And of course, David Lowy would love to have more folks call in and be guests on that radio show that I mentioned on KPFT. And of course, always to present a topic at one of our monthly meetings on the second Thursday. So EV 101 class.
Yeah, this is something that we're, Bill, yeah, we're thinking about some way of having a technician's class, or maybe just an owner's class of EVs come together. We happen to have a J2 run horse. It is this little truck you see here that might be available as an experiment. We haven't gotten that far yet. We're mostly looking for anybody who's maybe a teacher or knows how to deal with it, or there is no EV education in Houston at the technician level. There needs to be. Yeah.
So yeah, it's always good for folks to get hands-on experience with things, especially young folks. And so by having opportunity with a vehicle like this, hopefully we can do that. We have had a professor come to a number of meetings. I think he was trying to get things started. With Curtis, things are currently moving forward.
Well, David had as a guest, Dr. McNally,
Yeah.
who has started the EV, and he's got an open curriculum. We're hoping he can help us with.
Yeah, that would be great. To be able to
He is,
piggyback on what he's built already.
Established, he's got a long career in automotive. Now he's moving into the EV side.
Right.
That's a real possibility. We're hoping we can get him in touch with HCC or somebody and wake them up.
Yeah, because as you said,
They have a degree program in
okay.
EV maintenance and repair, as well as autonomous cars.
Great.
At HTC?
Yeah, thank you,
It's,
David.
Hudson
Community College.
Hudson
Hudson
Valley.
Valley Community College in Troy, New York.
Thank you for bringing him up. He's
Yeah,
a
well,
real
I
asset.
met him at the national meeting when I was up in New York.
Yeah.
He won recognition as EV Educator of the Year.
Yeah.
By the EVA.
Yeah, the fact that he's got the whole program and that it can lead to degrees, I mean, that's really great. That's even better than typically what people are doing here.
He started out as an ordinary car mechanic in the 1980s. I worked in that field for about 10 years. He says the difference between EVs and those cars is night and day.
Yeah.
He's rarely met anyone who's driven EVs who said they would want to go back.
Yeah. Very good, very good. So, yeah, so that's under opportunities here. And of course, at TXRX, we thank them for having the space available here for no cost. And all of us can meet face to face and discuss things. And so you can see some of the other opportunities that folks have here at TXRX. And as we say down there at the bottom, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So this meeting will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. Go back as far as we started recording these and posting when the pandemic kind of caused the change from only having in person to then having only virtual. And now, of course, we're doing the hybrid, which we find works out really well, folks. So, all right. I will stop sharing here. Okay. So, and Robin is commenting in the chat, and folks online, feel free to put questions in the chat as we go through here. Robin saying, I grew up just down the road in Chatham, New York, so close to Troy. So, yeah, so here we are in the room. Hi, everybody online. And, yeah. All right, so Michael,
Yes.
let's have you talk a little bit here first.
Okay, hello, everybody. I was here at the last meeting. I don't recognize everybody here, but I hope some of y'all remember me. I was the one with the Communicar that we're trying to get running back up. I found it in a shed off like an hour away from here, and Bill has been helping me go over it, do inventory, seeing what's going on with it, and see if we can get that thing back up and running. If anyone would like to go through this, this is the original owner's manual that I have here. I will say, again, I found it in a shed. So the manual is a little beat up and dirty. But if you're not afraid, I will just, pass it down if anyone wants to take a look. Not too long ago, we took the motor out and we found out that the brushes were really bad. They were exposed for one, so of course. And with Bill's help, we were able to get it repaired. We took it to a shop, got the whole thing as close to new as it can be. And we are currently going to put it back in the car and then try to figure out the electrical system to see if those wheels, right now we have it like up on, words escaping me right now, but it's up right now and we're trying to see if the wheels will spin. If they spin, we are good. That's like most of the work out of the way. Sure, it'll still be ugly. We'll have to fix that later. But the main thing is if it moves, then we're in business. Right now, we're trying to see how we're gonna hook up all the wires, all the electrical components. And here's another old nasty document here. There is a speed controller. So just to give a little quick, if you weren't here when I mentioned it at the last meeting, somebody took the internal out and put modern speed controls in there, a solid state. So we have no idea who did it before. We have no idea what they did to it. So we're trying to figure it out. So I guess reverse engineer it in a way. And I found the original document for the solid state right here. If you would also like to look at it. I personally can't make heads or tails of it. So I was hoping anyone here might be able to, be able to understand it. And Bill's also helped me go through it too. So if you would like to also pass this down.
What year was this?
1981. Now this this solid state, I found a sticker on it in the back of it that said 2006. So it's a little more modern than 81. Still kind of old, but hopefully it's salvageable and hopefully it works. We don't know until we hook everything up. And I think that is the gist. Am I forgetting anything?
I guess I told Michael, it's always easier to test something on a bench, take everything out and hook it up. I don't know that we're gonna do that. And we have a 48-volt pack, we'll grab it. I was just gonna put a 20 or 30 amp breaker between the battery and all the electronics and hope that if there's a problem, we don't want to let the smoke out. You've heard that term. So if anybody has any suggestions, let us know.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
Well, kind of unrelated. Oh, you had a question?
Yeah, do you have anywhere where we can see your progress on it?
I've been documenting all of it. I just haven't uploaded any of it yet. But on the next meeting, I'll probably have something ready. Cool. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, yep, TikTok. I have a lot of videos, pictures, everything's being documented.
Cool.
So it won't be lost. I have all of that. Also unrelated, I got an electric scooter. I thought that was really neat. And it's the Honda Moto Compacto. I don't know if anyone's heard of that one.
Oh, yeah.
I have
We have another.
You have one too? Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Would you be interested in racing? I've been taking that scooter everywhere. I took it on a trip to Dallas. I took it. Oh my gosh.
Yes, they even put a
Snoopy.
sticker on it,
Oh
yeah.
my god, I just put a sticker on mine. I put the original logo of the original Moto Campo. I put a modern logo of it, so that's really cool.
That is great.
And that's everything on my end.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Would
And
that be oldest, like what's the oldest documented still running electric vehicle? Like you said, this is 1981.
well, it depends on what you want to consider oldest. I mean, go back to century-old vehicles that, you know, some people keep maintained and
Yeah.
they're still drivable and they have documentation
Yeah.
from 1912 and so forth. Yeah, so original Baker Electrics and so forth. Yeah. They had one out at the Heels and Wheels in Seabrook, first weekend in May. So, yeah, and there's,
Jason, right?
Yeah.
And still drives it.
yeah. So, yeah, that's always good for folks in the Houston area to once a year go down to Seabrook, and the fee that they charge for getting there all goes to charity. And the fees that the owners of the cars pay to put their cars out there on display for everyone goes to charity. And they have a few electrics, and they also have some modern electrics too. So as well as classic cars. And thinking of other things, I'd like to mention folks that want to go down to that side of town. Emma organizes always a lunch every month, and it will be tomorrow. It will be at King's Beer House in League City. And 11:30 we start, 11:30. And everyone's welcome, but it's that's for that side of town. That's why we centered it there. As I mentioned earlier, we have the watershed event, the Batteries Booth, which is southwest side of town. It's just outside of the 610 loop. And so we try to do things in different ways.
It's also on the Facebook page and on the meetup page.
Yeah. So those are good things. Okay. So I'm turning more things to tonight. We originally were going to have two speakers, Larry being one, and then also the president of the Wisconsin chapter, Jeremiah Brockman. He unfortunately decided he wanted to spend a little time in the hospital and have his appendix taken out. So we'll give him a pass. It's like, okay, if you're gonna go that far to get out of it, we'll postpone you for a month, or we'll see exactly when Jeremiah is available. And I've met him a couple of times in person because he had a booth for their chapter up at an annual event in Wisconsin. There's the Midwest Energy Fair in Custer, Wisconsin, that's been going on. It's not happening this summer, but it's happened for a number of summers. I met Jeremiah up there. And so we always like to keep things going on, exchange with other chapters and so forth. But we'll find out at a future date what's happening in Wisconsin. So for folks here in the room, there's a sign-in sheet. We'd just like to keep track. So you come and get that if you haven't signed in yet. And so since we don't have Jeremiah, we've got at the end, we'll have John Atwood showing some pictures. I think Colin, you have some pictures from the Electrify Expo. And so we'll do that. But first, you ready, Larry?
Sure.
Okay. So Colin, did you want him to share?
Yeah, he's been that before.
Okay, so if you want to pull that up, I will need some information about Larry. Larry is the VP of Engineering here at TXRX Labs. And he's also the engineer in residence for Rice's ION facility. So we need to get more information about ION, folks here too. So he has received the NASA Innovation Award and the Rice Young Engineers Award for the year 2000. And Larry holds bachelor's and master's and PhD degrees in electrical engineering from Rice. Larry is planning a cross-country trip in an EV that will be run completely off-grid. So some of us have made trips before. I've driven from here to New Jersey to Illinois and back. Happened to be 4,444 miles. And I just stopped chargers along the way, and it worked out real well. Now this one, I think, is going to be really unique by him doing it completely off-grid. So he will take all the necessary food, water, and power with him. So that's why we're talking about it as a Mars trip. And
Why is that?
Well, I'll explain it. So, yeah.
okay, yeah. So folks, yeah, you can ask them questions either in the chat or by raising your hand in the room. So yeah, we'd like to hear what your story is, Larry.
Okay. So. What is that?
It's a double click to enter full screen mode. I see it on your screen here, but I don't see it. There we go. Now it's come on, okay,
Okay,
the Martian Road Trip.
Martian Road Trip. Okay. So I have to start with by asking a question. Who's seen the movie The Martian?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Well, the scene in the movie where Mark Watney has to travel across the planet to get to this site where they're gonna take him off the planet. So he's got an EV. Doesn't look like an EV. It looks like this weird contraption, but it is an EV. And so he piles everything into it that he needs. Food, water, he's got air supplies and everything like that. But and he sets off. And the thing is like with every EV, it drives for a while and runs out of power. And so when he runs out of power, he has to stop, set the solar panels out, and he's got a whole bunch of solar panels, recharge, and then put them back in, and then keep going. And so he hop skips all the way across the planet, doing that, step after step after step after step. Now it takes him quite a long time to do it, but he's got enormous supplies to do that. So the question I raised is, could you do that on Earth? Could you go, like I say, East Coast, West Coast on Earth and in an EV and carry everything with you? And the question is, why do you want to do this? Well, it's fun. Part of it is it's sort of like, have you ever heard of the X Prize and these other competitions? They're things that push the boundaries of technology. They're things that say, what could we do if we tried? What could we do if we set our mind to it? And so this is something like that, where I'm like, okay, people talk a lot about, well, we're going to travel to Mars someday, maybe soon or not. And we're going to do all these different things. Okay, great. Let's try out this on Earth. Now, obviously, I'm not going to worry about oxygen. Fine, I get oxygen. But food and water are a great constraint, because there are people that have done it, that you can actually just buy off-the-shelf solar panels and you can hook them to your car, and you could, if you're patient enough, you could take, a long time, and you can go as far as you want. So that's not really the issue. The issue is that since you have to carry your food, if you run out of food, then you've lost. So this gives a time constraint to it. And I'll figure out in a second here how long that is. So it's a challenge. And actually, what might be interesting about, it's a couple things, is it motivates people. If I do it and I take, 20 days or something to do it, somebody else might come along and go, well, that's silly. I could do it in half that time. Great. I mean, then it's a competition. I want other people to come along and go, that's, he did it the wrong way. I want to do it a better way. And then that encourages more and more people to do it. And that's the point, is it, in theory, with an EV, you could go, and you've got enough solar panels, you can go as far as you have supplies to go. And then the trick is, okay, how do you maximize the supply? So you do longer and longer and longer trips this way. So it's an interesting problem. As an engineer, it's a very interesting problem, because there's a lot of variables associated with this. Okay, I could carry a huge amount of solar panels, but they add a lot of weight, and they require storage, and maybe you need a trailer. And if I add all this stuff up, then suddenly it becomes less efficient. And so I need more power to charge more stuff, or I need more food. And, so all these little variables kind of interact with each other. And so as an engineer, that's what makes it fun. So it's interesting on multiple levels. So, and why not?
Right.
So there's a lot of pieces associated with this. Obviously, what vehicle am I going to carry everything in? How much food do I need? How much power do I need? And like I say, these interrelate with each other. The more food I carry, the heavier it is, the less efficient the vehicle is. All these different things. So I'm going to go through these very lightly, and you guys, and I'll have my email. If you guys have questions or anything that you want to ask about this, feel free after this or email me or whatever you want to to do it. I have a YouTube channel. I just started it. So I want to broadcast this and talk about it. And I've got a GitHub page with all the contents. And so all the analysis and all the calculations I do will be available as well. And all the information about how I did it, so that, you not only follow along, but contribute and suggest and comment and whatever else you want. So like I say, this is just a starting point of information. Okay, so let's start with the vehicle. And the honest answer is it'll probably be a Tesla Model Y, just because I have one. But also, it actually makes sense. There's a couple things about it. Number one, it has quite a lot of cargo capacity, and yet it's efficient. I mean, that's the thing is that I can get bigger vehicles, Rivians or say, a Cybertruck. But unfortunately, Cybertruck, for example, kind of sucks. Kind of sucks power. No pun intended. The Model Y is pretty efficient. It's not as good as some of the really lightweight ones and everything now. I mean, there are ones that are much, much more efficient. But, it's the balance of cargo capacity to efficiency is pretty good. And I have one, so honestly, that's probably the reason, the overriding thing. Although, as you'll see in a little bit here, I really want to kind of make some modifications to it. So I'm actually looking at maybe somebody will loan me a vehicle to use, because I kind of want to rip out the passenger seat and things like that. So we'll see.
So, quick question, are you
Yeah.
self-financing all this?
Yes, all right. So far, I'm self-financing. I am looking for sponsors. I thought I had a sponsor of a Japanese ramen noodle company. So I figured all these videos I'd be eating ramen noodles. I might get kind of tired of that. So fortunately, it didn't work out, at least not so far. But yes, the sponsors are great. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, and speaking of which, I'm going to start this conversation around food and water, and it's an interesting place to start. But all the other, you'll see, and I'm going to sort of walk through the basic calculations here. It actually all kind of starts with food and water. Now, you think of this is very much like a backpacking trip. So, and honestly, there's a whole industry about dried foods and lightweight and everything like this. So the food, at least, is not really that difficult. But I want to have a baseline of, okay, I need to carry it and it's going to have some volume. So this is a rough calculation, and honestly, I can do better. For all the calculations you're going to see, these are all conservative. But my point in that is, I am sure there are things that I will encounter, like clouds, that will screw things up anyways. So I might as well start with making every single thing I calculate on the safe side. So, and if I do better than that, maybe I'll end the trip quicker. Great, but I want to have the goal to end at all. I don't care how long it takes, but that does mean that I can't run out of food. So, my base.
At the end of the trip, you want to weigh 300 pounds?
No, not have food. Well, not be dead is no.
So you can less than 300, more than 0.
Correct.
Have you considered recovering water from condensed by your AC system in the car?
Well, okay, yeah, I thought you were going to say something else. But...
No, I mean from the AC system in your car. It's going to drip water out anyway.
Conceivably, but the Tesla's
That's a backup.
That's a backup plan.
Okay.
It'd be that's probably a small percentage improvement. But yes, and I mean, again, there's 1,000 improvements. I'm going to do it probably the most crude way, and then there's going to be the next person coming along doing it vastly better and more efficient, and blah 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 blah. So that's great. So, anyways, back to my rough numbers. So I did some research online by the way, I'm going to do test runs before I do the full run, I'm gonna be doing incremental tests, just like in the movie. He has to do small incremental tests and build his way up. I'm gonna do the same thing with all the parts of the system. So I'll be able to prove out all these assumptions before I get into the final trip. And you have to do that as an engineer. You have to do that. So, but as baseline, 2.5 pounds of food a day, and let's say a gallon of water. That's about 8.5 pounds of water. So 11 pounds of supplies per day. And you really don't want, I mean, I don't want to go over about 300 pounds for all that. That would be like if I took out the passenger seat, I could put a volume there, and 300 pounds is a person and a half. That seems manageable. So that's my baseline, 300 pounds maximum, and that means 27 days. So I have to finish this thing in less than 27 days. And again, for safety, because if I hit 3 days of clouds and I can't get any energy from the sun, I gotta just sit there for 3 days. So it has to be quite a bit less than that in reality. So again, my real goal is 14 days. And that gives me several, at least a week or a week and a half worth of buffer. So
you're driving at night.
yeah, well, call it before dawn. So say 2 a.m. to dawn, and then stop and well, and I'll show that. But yeah, you stop and you set out the solar panels and you sit there all day long and recharge, and then you sleep, and then you loop and do the same thing. So every single day you do the loop. Okay, so let's talk about power. So now we have a baseline. We want to do this in 14 days. And we have, again, cross country, let's say 2,600 miles. It's a little bit less than that, but let's say 2,600. So that's, let's say about 200 miles a day is a good goal. I already said the Tesla is about 260 watt hours per mile, and it varies based on a lot of different factors, but let's say 260. So I need about 52 kilowatt hours of energy per day that I have to generate to keep going. That's quite a lot. I mean, it's as much as a pretty good solar installation in a house, or a large solar installation in a house. So, but it is doable. Okay, so how big is that array? How big of an array do you need to produce 56, or actually I have 52 here, over 50 kilowatt hours of energy per day? Well, this starts getting into what time of the year and where I'm traveling. Now, in the original map, I had it sort of going midway across the country, say I-40, I think that is. That's roughly the 34th parallel. Well, it's actually a little bit north of that, or that area. So that's one factor. And then the other factor is what time of the year. Well, it has to be either the spring or the fall. And that's very simple, because if it's in the summer, I have to use air conditioning. If it's in the winter, I have to use heat. Both of those things will destroy it because it takes too much power. So I can't have air conditioning, can't have heat. So spring and fall. So if I assume this 34th parallel and in the spring, say, then there's some really cool apps. I use one called System SAM. I forget what it stands for. It's made by San Diego National Labs, and it allows you to simulate solar farms. And you can put in every conceivable variable in it. The types of panels you're using, how they're configured, the electronics, everything, and it will tell you, well, and it has a full map. It uses accurate data, say for a particular location. It'll tell you how many hours of light energy you get per day. So this thing gives you very, very precise data. So putting all this into that, an average, a baseline average is about 6 hours of sunlight per day. So assuming that, then I need about an 8.6 kilowatt array, which is, like I say, pretty big. But how big is that? Okay, it's really big. And actually I do, the one YouTube video I have on there, I have break this down and I go through all the little details. The answer is because, see, there's a lot of things that affect it. The amount of light energy that hits the earth is about 1 kilowatt per square meter, which is actually pretty good. That means actually, in theory, then for an 8.6 kilowatt array, you only need 8.6 square meters, which is less than the size of this table. But the reality is there's a lot of things that take away from it. There is the solar cell efficiency. The solar cells that you can buy, the solar panels, the best you can get is about 24% efficiency. So you can only suck a quarter of that or less than a quarter of that. But then there's other factors like if you just set the panels down on the ground, then they're not tracking the sun properly. You're losing a lot of energy. That's one of the things. If you put panels on your house and they put it on all the spaces of the roof, regardless of how it's oriented, you're really not gaining that much out of that, or not nearly as much as you could, because they're not pointing towards the sun at all. And actually, in some cases, it can be really bad. You can just be flat out pointing in the wrong direction. They don't really care when they install them because they're making money anyway. So, so all of this means that the array that you end up, and each of the panels themselves are fixed pieces, and you have to wire them all together, and they have to be spaced out. They have to be spread out from each other on the ground so that you don't get shadowing, because you can't have one panel shadow another, otherwise you're losing the energy. So you end up with this massive field of panels, which, like I say, dwarfs the size of the car. So that's not really, and actually there is a guy on YouTube that did a cross-country trip with solar. It took him like 3.5 months ish, 4 months. And it wore him out. Because he was sitting there for like 2 weeks just trying to recharge, because it was so. Now he didn't have this big of an array, but it just didn't quite work very well. So we don't want to do that. We got to be much more efficient. So what I've gone with is this idea of towers, small, portable, lightweight towers. And I actually set up my current prototype out in the lobby. You can see it as you go out. It's actually let's say a 3/4 scale model right now. These towers, they're made out of the towers themselves, and I'll show you pictures in a second. Carbon fiber tubes. Imagine something that looks like an umbrella that you open up, made out of carbon fiber tubes. And then the panels themselves snap to that. So you can set these things up in a couple minutes. You set them up, plug them into the car, away you go. So that makes it, and yes, you need several of them. Don't know exactly how many yet. It'll be at least 6. It's somewhere between 6 and 8 that I'll need of these. But they fold up small enough that I can throw them in the back of the car and I can keep going. So that's kind of a reasonable, and then they fully track the sun. And see, because of that, I can shrink the size what I need. I'm getting a lot more energy out of it, and it can be a lot smaller, which really for this makes it a lot more feasible for one person to set up versus this huge field of panels.
What if it's windy?
Why is it what?
What if it's windy?
Then I take them down quickly. Well, that's a very good question. And there's levels of windiness. So there's a little bit windy, and these are actually going to be very sturdy. And they'll actually, I've got a thing where I can auger them down in the ground, so I can actually kind of bolt them to the ground. But then at a certain point, because these are smart, they'll actually have their motors and computers in them. They actually will look at the sky and have wind sensors and everything in it. And so they can actually feather themselves into the wind. So if there's a moderate breeze, they can feather themselves and take it. If there's a large breeze, then I take them down and put them away. Or I can take them down, and the way these work, the panels themselves are separate. So I can just lay, in worst case, I could lay them on the ground. So I can still do the worst case situation. I can also do better than that.
Larry, I'd like to point out, one of our folks online is Michael Zutek,
Uh-huh.
and he's our wind expert.
Oh, awesome.
So he can help you out.
We will, and yeah, one of the things, I've got CAD models of all these and everything, and I actually am gonna do wind testing on them and wind load analysis and the whole shebang. So as well as testing them out in the field. So, but that, no, it is a very good.
Yeah, so Mike likes to put the little flags on vehicles.
Oh,
and-
awesome,
and
awesome.
measure everything, do all the
Well,
calculations.
so there is another thing because, and that actually is useful because hopefully I can fit all this stuff inside the car. But there's a chance I can't, at least like the solar panels. And there's two different options for in that case. One is get a carrier to put on to the roof of the car. The other is to actually make a small lightweight trailer.
The way you're affecting aerodynamics.
You're
So
affecting
that's
aerodynamics,
exactly
you're
what Mike
affecting,
is-
yes. And you're, yeah, severely impacting the efficiency of the car. And that again has this cascading effect that then suddenly, you can easily in the calculations go off a cliff where suddenly you need more power. And then to do that, you need more room, you need more, and it doesn't work. So we'll see, and we'll see how we get. So yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, go ahead.
Is your miles per kilowatt hour typical? Do you plan to go slowly?
Oh, yes.
No, 200 miles per day, that's slow.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's 200. I'm only doing 200 miles a day, so I don't have to go very fast. I've got plenty of time. The driving time is really going to be a small portion of the day. The sitting there and doing nothing time and twiddling my thumbs while it recharges is going to be the bulk of the day. So,
In fact, actually, Bill, you remind me, I was driving from here to Arizona in West Texas. There was a father and son, and they were talking at the charger, but they always kept to 55 miles per hour because they had a big trailer that they were pulling behind their.
oh, well, yeah, you got a trailer. My goal is probably 55 because that's this least I can drive without probably getting rear-ended.
Each other driving, right? Yes, probably. People go fast.
So, now there again, I'll be driving at like 2 AM, so I don't expect traffic to be a frequent issue. So we'll see.
And Robin online also makes a comment, maybe you want to choose fall instead of spring since you're going through Tornado Alley.
That's a very good point. Yes, yes, very good point.
And while we're also looking at Robert
Yeah.
Gordon is also questioning about
Yeah.
what you already brought up about you're adding weight by carrying everything with you and how you think that might lower your efficiency.
Yeah, well, and actually, that's a key thing. So the weight, the least, and especially, we're gonna get to an important part of that in a second. The least weight possible is definitely the goal. Now, if my Y, I mean, if you're carrying, so if you think about it, if you're carrying 2 people, if you fill it up with 3 or 4 people, then I don't want to do more than that. So definitely no more than 1,000 pounds of cargo. And it's, if possible, a lot less than that. So yes, definitely the least amount of weight possible in all of this is very, very critical. And actually the first aspect, and there's a couple parts of that. One thing is I definitely don't want to add batteries. Batteries are so heavy. I mean, I've got a big battery in the car. I don't need to add another battery. Well, I don't want to add another battery. But to do that, there's other trickiness because that means I'm going straight from the solar panels into the car. And there's actually problems with that because if a cloud goes over, then the solar output drops. And if you're plugging it in, like, and you'll see in a second, basically I'm pretending to be a level 2 charger to the car. But the problem is if the power drops, then suddenly you have to tell the car, wait a minute, don't take power that quickly. And so you'll see in the electronics, it's actually quite complicated to come up with something that is very small and lightweight, but can renegotiate with the car on the fly and even watches the sky to say, okay, there's even a plane coming over. and it can say, okay, fine, I'm going to renegotiate the car and drop the charging rate for a minute. And then, okay, now I can go back up, or given the cloud cover, here's the most I can charge the car at. You know, always trying to keep the optimal. But there's no buffer. There's no big battery on the outside to say, okay, well, never mind, I'll just charge this for a while. Because that adds too much weight.
Actually, Robert's question drives another question on mine. Are you packing out all the materials like empty food, packaging and any waste and any other things that might?
Probably container, food packaging waste, yes. Human waste, no. Sorry. Again, I'm gonna be breathing in, so I'll be breathing in air and throwing out waste, like, no. There's, yeah, no, that would make it logistically a lot. Well, not just logistics, but.
Let me be clear.
Well, I'll leave that for the next, the second person to do it. He can complain that I was not a purist in it, and he can augment. Go for it. I mean, you can even carry your own oxygen if you wanted to, but I'm not gonna do that.
I'll leave that for the national competition.
That's right, that's right.
It will most certainly will arise.
Exactly, that's right. So, but yeah, speaking of weight, you know, the first thing I had to think about was solar panels. What solar? And I mean, there's tons of ones you can buy online. And I bought several from Amazon. And they basically break down into roughly two categories. One are rigid panels, and one are flexible panels. Now, there are a lot of different kinds, but I bought a couple of each to play with them. And a couple different things. First of all, what I figured very quickly is the rigid panels, there's no way now. And as a matter of fact, you'll see in a second, I actually made a chart. I am an engineer, so I gathered a lot of data and made charts and did weight calculations and area calculations. And the rigid ones, no, they're way too heavy. It just wouldn't work. And actually too bulky. They're too big. There's just no way to fit, because I need to do 8 kilowatts. It's a lot of panels. I mean, you're talking like, well, for a normal panel, you're talking at least 50 or 60 panels. The flexible ones are better, they're lighter, but they have their own issues. They're actually not that much lighter, they're a little bit lighter. And also, because they're floppy, if I want to mount them in some way to track the sun, I have to add structure. And if I add structure, I add more weight. And so neither the rigid ones that I could find off online or the flexible ones, the numbers didn't quite add up right. The weight that I needed for this was, I would go over the 1,000 pounds, so very close to it. And again, these things are a pain in the ass to set up. So I was like, well, what's the other choice? Well, of course, being an engineer, I'm like, okay, there are people who have done these types of things before. There's the round the trip. There's the airplane that went around the world. And there's other vehicles and other things. And the way they mostly do it is they buy the individual solar cells. As a matter of fact, doing some research, they all appear to have used the same exact cell. It's this Martian cell. It's made by a company. The company itself is still, it actually was an MIT company, but then they sold out to a Chinese firm a few years ago. They're not really, they are not a US company at all anymore. I actually ordered the cells in the end, but I had to order it and it came through Hong Kong by way of Australia, all sorts of things. But basically you can buy the cells and you can make your own panels, which is perfect. And they're also very efficient. And the cells themselves, I mean, that's the thing to understand. The solar cells themselves weigh nothing. They're thin, there's nothing to them. It's all of what they're mounted to, the panel itself. And that's really the limiting factor of this. So what I came up with is a different way of mounting it, or a different way of constructing them, which is I actually take the cells and I laminate them. So very, very, very thin sheets of polycarbonate. And the current design or current plan, and I see it's working, is I actually laminate together using a relatively normal, although it's a little bit fancy, lamination machine. I also have a vacuum press that I made, but I think actually we'll end up just using the laminator because it's quick and easy. Basically, you put it together in these chunks and then you run it through well, just like you would laminate anything. And you end up with the thing at the top. And then I mount that to a backing. And in my case, what I'm using as backing is a twin wall polycarbonate sheets. And what they are, they're used for making like greenhouses and structures and everything. They're very, very strong and very, very light. And again, it's all polycarbonate. And you end up with something, and I've got a prototype here on the table you can see. It's both light, and so as a matter of fact, it's lighter than the Flex solar panels, and yet it's stiff. It's very stiff. And so it's stiff enough that I can then take that and use that as a structural thing. And actually, I snap it onto the tower. I just embed magnets on the back of it, and it just snaps onto the tower. So, that ended up, and yes, it seems kind of silly to go through all the effort of building your own panels, but I just really couldn't find anything that made any sense for what I needed.
Well, I'd like to point out, Mike has put some good information on here saying that actually you can have your coefficient of drag go down if your trailer shape is very smartly designed.
Yes, and actually that would be, I'd love to do some calculation. Maybe he could help with that. Yes, and that a properly designed trailer might actually improve things, not make it better.
Assuming you're not accelerating, decelerating a whole lot.
Right.
You're going more or less constant speed.
Yes.
A lot of this, that
So yes,
you could use more traditional panels that do way more, and take up more volume.
well,
but
yeah,
on
I
a
could
trailer,
still,
you could.
I would still probably go with this,
Okay.
but I still, there's a room that these take up. And actually, if I can have a trailer to store all these, it makes it really, really easy because it's easier than sleep, because the thing is that I get to, while I'm sleeping, I don't want panels out, but I also need room to sleep. And I don't really want to set up like
water in the trailer.
right, yeah, so use it as the storage thing, and then I sleep in the car. So that still is a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I'm still playing, that would be great to play with the numbers and try that out.
I question that you would actually be able to reduce your overall coefficient of drag by adding a trailer though, because if you're gonna be able to turn the car, that means you have to have a gap between the trailer and the car, which is inherently gonna kill your airplane.
Right, well,
Sliding,
yeah.
Obviously, you can go further, but this is what Mike put in the chat. If you just want to read through that real quick.
Yeah.
put a shroud.
Yeah, shroud. There's,
I mean, well, he's got another compensate, he's gotta be ready by next spring,
By putting some
well, I mean, we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
cargo backs on the box, on the cargo box on the back will help.
Yeah,
But I don't think there's a way to do it correctly.
right. Anyways, but like I say, that's definitely one of the things I have to figure out is how all this fits. So, and it is tricky because again, it is a lot of, even with these, and these are very thin and very light, they still take up some amount of volume, and I've got to sleep somewhere. So there's all of the variables together. So anyways, this is a rendering of what the towers look like. And like I say, I have a prototype that's sitting out in the lobby here that you can take a look at afterwards. That's a version 1. I've actually already dramatically improved the design. It really folds up into something that's about, the tower itself is a tube structure about 4 feet long and about a foot in diameter, and weighs, the entire tower, this is a 1.2 kilowatt tower, will weigh about 40 pounds. That includes the solar panels. So the entire, all of the solar generation stuff combined is about 300 pounds.
Right. If your photo there had a little bit more orange, red, and the sky wasn't blue, it
Yeah,
would
yeah.
look like Mars, yeah.
And it would work on Mars because unlike in the movie, no, there is no heavy wind that could blow everything down. No, that was not realistic.
Yeah, and when Andy Weir came to JSC, he said he knew that the physics weren't right, but he really just wanted that in the story, so he left it.
Yeah, I know. I know. I love his story about books, by the way. His other ones, so his third book about meeting the aliens is phenomenal. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So anyways, But like I say, these things, all the wiring's inside, there's motors inside, so it's fully tracks the sun, the whole bit. You just basically plug in at the bottom. So there's basically one wire at the bottom going from the tower to a central box, and that's it, you know, for each tower. But it's really, really quick and easy to set these things up. So, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit. You don't have to be worried about the details, but one of the questions is, okay, how do you get the power from the tower to the car? And the thing to understand is solar panels are DC, okay? And as a matter of fact, they're not just DC, they're kind of funny DC. They have this power curve that's really kind of weird. They act as diodes or big diodes. And so you can't just treat them as a battery. They're not a battery. And so you have to have circuitry to pull the power out of it correctly and do it. And you have this thing called a MPPT controller that you talk to the tower and everything like that. And then I have to take that DC and get it into the car. Now, it turns out, and my original plan was, hey, I can take the power coming out the tower, since it's the wrong voltage, it's maybe 48 volts or 96 volts, but I could boost it up and I could actually plug it straight into the car, just like DC fast charge. So I could pretend to be a DC fast charge station. And yes, that is actually feasible, possible. And that's sort of my, after I get this working, then I might work on that as the improved version. But there's a lot of problems with, or challenges with that. The voltage you're talking about is like 400 volts for Model Y. That's pretty scary. I mean, it's kind of high stuff. And there's not as much information about how you do that. Well, there's a lot of information, but it's not something that normal people do. So what I ended up actually switching to as a model, and actually I have sitting on the table here, my work in progress on the first version of the full electronics. So we're not talking about a big thing here. This actually, in the end, this thing, which is a big white box, right? Well, it's it's right now it's about this big, and ultimately, once I get it all working and tune it, it could end up being a little box like this. So we're talking a few pounds and a tiny little box. It's basically a combination of a microinverter, and microinverters are they actually are pretty common now for doing solar installations on your house. You put it on the roof, and then it converts the DC of the tower straight into AC right on your roof, and then you feed it into the house. So it's basically a microinverter box combined with the equivalent of what you have for your EV charger, like a level 2 charger that you plug into your house. I have to put it all together because I have to, like I say, I have to renegotiate it. I have to talk back and forth a lot because a cloud comes over. I have to tell the car, no, now we're not going to do it 15 amps. We have to go down to 2 amps. Okay, now you can go back up to 10 amps or whatever. So there's some little trickiness associated with that. But in theory, it's just the same as a a couple of different boxes. Now, one of the nice things is with the particular version of electronics, so I got electronics that are all exposed. They're all open source, or at the very least, I have all the pieces of it so that I can go in and touch the software. I can touch all the pieces associated with that. And because I'm an engineer, I like to tinker with things and adapt it to what I particularly need. You could theoretically do, and actually the guy who did his trip, he just used an off-the-shelf box. But the one he used was, weighed a couple 100 pounds, and it was massive. And I'll end up with something that's like this. And this is extremely efficient. It's in the end, from the tower to the car, is about 97% efficient. So I'm not losing, and that's critical because again, every time I lose energy and lose power, I have to have a bigger array. So, so there's a lot of bits to this. So yeah, this is electronics, and actually, that's just the first step. I need multiple of these towers, so it's actually worse than that. I need a whole bunch of these boxes talking to each other. But this is part of, and like I say, any of the people who are electrical engineers or people want to understand more, I'm happy to go through this with you and explain how it all works. But I'm actually even going to the level of, I have this reference design for this microinverter, and I'm assembling it myself, the circuit board, and it has, I think, over 300 or 400 parts on it. So I'm assembling them all myself. So I don't pick easy way to do anything. So, but yeah, I'm happy to go through it for anybody who's interested. Any questions at this point?
So yeah, just a couple of things that Robert Horton has mentioned, that the solar cells that the Aptera guys have developed. Remember the Aptera
Yes,
vehicle?
yes.
So very lightweight, three-wheel car. I didn't know this. He says they ended up using Gorilla Glass on their solar cells.
Yeah.
And that's what is often is on the phones and stuff, very tough glass. So that was interesting, and you put a link in there.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
then also commented that 97%, and I agree, is very efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I don't take credit for all that myself. I found this TI reference design that uses very advanced converters, inverters and everything, and it's fantastic. So, and very, very flexible, and it's all, I can reconfigure it with software, and it's phenomenal. So gives me a lot of, and actually the same exact electronics, in theory, for the version 2, I can drop the AC port of it, part of it, go direct to DC in and get even higher efficiency. So pretty cool. So let's switch over to more mundane stuff. So like I say, and we already covered this a little bit, basically I'm gonna, the plan is I'll wake up at 2 a.m., drive 200 miles, stop, set up the towers, sit there and charge all day, presumably work on my blog or do the video editing or something. And then at night, pack it up, sleep, and rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And like I say, 14 days, it means at least I'm doing it at least 14 times. And realistically, it'll be more than that because there'll be days that are cloudy or raining or whatever, and I won't be able to set up. So, whatever it does end up taking, I have to just keep doing this over and over and over again. So it's interesting to see how I'll keep myself occupied.
And we have predetermined locations where you want to sleep?
I think what I'll do is I'll map out, goals, but the nice thing about this, it really doesn't matter where I stop. So it could be a parking lot, it could be, there's some advantage for it to be dirt because then I can attach the towers to the ground. But so yeah, I'll come up with optional places, but I'm sure that will change for a while. And like I say, everything's got to fit in the car. And this is where I've got to do more testing and and I'm going to start with these incremental tests, put a tower in there, put some supplies in there, drive for a day, see if everything, how big really things are. And I mean, that's where, the reality is going to hit. But how, like I say, in this thing, I have the actual solar panels themselves sitting on top of the car. So, but if I do that, that's going to impact the aerodynamics. So we'll see how that works out. And like I say, I'm going to document the video. I did start up a YouTube video and everything like that. So channel. So I'm going to put everything up there as I go along. And I have set up and I'll send you, anybody who wants this, I'll send you the slides, but I've got a GitHub site with all the information, the documentation. I've got the YouTube channel, the whole bit. So happy to get you information. Well,
Question, Jason?
Yeah.
I was just gonna point out that, probably focusing on, weight is the wrong thing. Your goal should be to first keep the bulk down, because anything you put outside the car is gonna kill your rate.
Yep.
With
surface, actually, that's the thing. The first thing is in the solar panel calculations, the reason again, we do the tracking, everything at surface area and the volume of the panels.
Yeah.
By doing it this way, I'm at least half the surface, half the volume, or a quarter of the volume, and half the surface area, and about half the weight of any off-the-shelf panel.
Because for efficiency, your weight scale, the weight contribution to your power consumption scales linearly with speed, where drag scales to the cube of speed.
Right.
So, you know.
That's a very good point.
You're gonna, as soon as you go above maybe 25 miles an hour, the drag is gonna be the bulk of your consumption.
And Jason left NASA Ruby and grabbed him, so he's one of the stars.
So, and then keep everything inside.
Yeah.
All possible.
Or like you said, don't put it on the roof, put it behind the vehicle so you can keep your cross section area.
Right, driving is like 5 kilowatts and charging your phone is 500 watts.
Oh, okay.
At most, like charging a laptop.
Yeah, all the ancillary electronics I'm gonna carry with me, I can charge off of one panel. You know.
Half of
it's-
that.
Yeah,
So there's a question here.
Yeah.
Will you be able to see out of the right side passenger window? And all the-
Gonna get.
well, that's the nice thing about the Tesla's having the camera there. No, yeah, it's a very good question. We'll see. I honestly, I think I'm being very, very, very conservative on the food and water, and the area of the volume of it. Again, I need to do more testing with that, but I don't think it's gonna take, and worst case, if I take the actual seat out, there's actually quite a bit of room there, and I can make it lower so I can look over it. But yes, my rendering, implies that you can't, but we'll see.
So are you gonna plan an extra, say, kilowatt hour a day for cooking, or are you just gonna cold soak everything?
Solar run.
Yeah,
No, there you go.
but even,
Drive-throughs. I mean, you're crossing the country and there's so much food to try.
one of the things I think is, and that's one of the reasons why I want to be generous on the food budget is, I just don't, if I'm doing this, I don't want to, I want to eat good things and I want to eat things I enjoy. So I'm not going to skimp on having, but yes, they have to be prepared somehow, and there will be some energy consumed by that. But it's really a very small percentage relative to the cost.
Are you taking all your water?
Yes. 100, probably 100, about roughly 150 pounds of water. So that's, yeah, that actually, if you look in the picture there, the green is water, the blue is food. And actually the percentages, the ratio is more than that. It's mostly water and very little food.
So you're talking about taking food you enjoy, the crew members on ocean.
There you go. That's right.
I would pack a few of those, yeah.
Although what I probably won't have is a refrigerator. I don't.
More MRE style.
Yeah.
Camping.
Yeah.
Drive package.
Well, heating, maybe
The refrigerators
small one.
only draw like, if you get a DC fridge, it
Yeah.
only draws like maybe 50 watts continuous.
Okay.
Or maybe 10 watts, if you get a small one. Like it's.
Well, yeah, but I guess the thing is that, yes, but how much are you gonna actually store? I mean, that's the thing is 2 or 3 days. So the first couple days I'll be really, really happy. And then I run out of whatever it was that was stored in that small container, and then I will be sad. So,
It depends on, which components you put in there, but yeah. sure.
yes, no, that's right. So if I pick and choose and put things that I care about, like, so I'll store the shrimp in there and just shrimp.
Yeah.
Sure. But then maybe the drinks, I just not drink cold drinks or something.
I wonder what the hottest part of the thermal loop is. Could you, the classic ICE thing is to bake something on your motor. But it's not gonna be that hot. But
If that's working, you're in trouble.
well, the out,
But you
probably the
waste
output
heat,
is,
what
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah. There'll be a
No.
little bit, not,
Yeah.
just sort of warm it up.
Yeah.
Boil it, but.
Aren't there
Well,
some solar stoves that
Oh, yeah.
that you'll
Oh,
put
yeah.
the sun down and
But
bake
yeah, and like I say, and that's everything. I mean, yeah, that, and I'll look at the efficient, and actually, I think they're fairly efficient, so that's possible. Or I could just have one extra panel. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Probably a
so.
good idea anyway. if
Yeah.
it's spare, yeah.
Well, is it the end of the world if you bring fuel for a camp stove?
I would say that goes against the goal of this. One of the interesting things about this is except for food and water, you can go an infinite distance. There's nothing, there are no consumables in this other than food and water.
The air has water in it. Now, it takes a lot of energy to get it out, but
Oh, it takes a lot of energy to get it out. Yes, yeah.
unless you're doing it incidentally.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna do one of those, water from the air things. No, there's no way.
Well, plus, if you were using the fuel stove, you're gonna use up your oxygen budget real quick.
Everybody's already accepted that.
Yeah.
So you're going California to South Carolina, so you're going that direction. Was that arbitrary or is it matter which way you're going?
It was a very, very well thought out, deep, process of evaluation, or I just randomly picked that direction.
Okay, yeah.
I'll let you decide which of those it was.
And you also need to get from here to your starting point.
True.
And quite back
True.
home, I would say.
Yes, that's true. That's right. Now, whether I treat those as part of the trip or just separate little, probably those will be test excursions.
I was gonna say, you can stock up, obviously, once you get to the west coast and then start going along. So, the question online, will you be using a camping shower?
That's actually a very good question. Hadn't quite gotten to that. I think the answer hopefully is yes. If not, then, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, cause I mean.
But that will eat into the water budget pretty significantly.
It does dew on your solar panels count?
Well, that's fine.
Except we're not leaving them out of here.
But there's a very pungent or poignant scene in the Martian when he comes on board.
Yes, there you go. Yes, for accuracy, yes, for movie accuracy, then I can't watch that. That's a very good question, actually.
Does it break your paradigm if you get a gym membership?
I think that it has sort of and not. I think the answer is yes and no, but I think part of that is there's a lot of things that I can do that don't technically break the rules, but would not look good. So I want to try to avoid things like that if possible. But we'll see.
So collecting rainwater wouldn't be.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, showering in the rain. can help
Showering in
you.
the rain, yeah.
Oh, fine. If I hit a rain shower, yeah, no. There you go.
So that's another good reason to start at the west coast instead of the east, because then by the time you're stinky, you're starting to hit the rainy.
Very good. I like that. That's very good.
So online, we've got, could you get water for free with a solar still? Like we use in the desert?
You could. It's just not very much.
Solar still, you have to have the water in the first place.
Yeah.
That's only gonna help you purify it.
Yeah. I mean, the,
There are some systems that actually.
Well,
draw
yeah.
dirty out of the air.
well,
Yeah.
part of the thing though, they're large for the amount of water and you have to sit there for, I mean, if you're sitting there all day long, you're not gonna get enough to live off of. It'll only augment. I mean, at that point, the question, you probably have to weigh the weight and volume of the still versus just carrying a couple more gallons of water. So not really sure which is better.
Cars often just give off water. I mean,
True.
mine does, it's an electric car,
Yeah.
and it
The
just
AC
has
probably
extra water.
goes
Just-
out the
Well,
Yeah.
yes,
No way.
although, again, and this is the thing, I'm using an off-the-shelf car. There are so many orders of magnitudes of improvement that you could do if you started more customizing the car and really thinking about the car.
Figure out where to put
Oh,
that when
there's-
it's raw.
Yeah, you could put, like I say, you could capture more of what it's producing, you can more efficiently package for this intended goal. So, again, I'll leave a lot of those optimizations for whoever falls.
Okay.
I'm thinking of near off-the-shelf car, we mentioned Aptera already.
And yes, and the Aptera is much more efficient per mile, but it's also doesn't have anywhere close to the volume of storage. Don't think it would work.
Starting with a 1,000-mile range model and you start with a full battery, you're halfway across the country without.
Right, but then I have to recharge.
Yeah.
And
You have a smaller battery.
right, you have a smaller battery to recharge, but you have a lot smaller volume of storage. I mean, that's the thing is, it's not just, it's the volume versus efficiency. And you'd have to carry the panels, even a smaller panel like that, that's half the size of the panels that I'll end up with. just fitting that inside the aft trailer. Very
But you get the
problematic.
first half of the trip done in 48 hours or 24 hours, or depending on how much you want to sleep.
Right,
And
but
then
they,
you only need to put your panels out for the second half. of the
be
trip.
interesting to do the calculations. I'm not convinced that it would be, yes, but you have a lot less room for food and water. The you put 300 pounds of food and water in there. Well, let's say you needed half that. Let's say you need 150 pounds. You still have to have enough room for that.
Or
Now
just change your,
better.
move your goal line over to what the range of the max there is.
Yes, but no, yes.
I'm kidding, that's cheating.
And as a matter of fact, one of the things I think would be a very logical next step of this, is, okay, 2,600 miles seems like a lot, but really it's not. I could easily see somebody go, okay, now I'm gonna go coast to coast and back.
Right.
You know, the minute you hit a loop, and actually I think there's a point at which this process of threshold, you know, the coast to coast in a gas car, yeah, you can do that. You can do that right now pretty easily. Coast and back in a gas car, I think you can do that. So there's a threshold you hit with this that you go above that, and suddenly the only way to do this is with a vehicle like this. And that's kind of interesting.
Have you considered the emotional aspects of enduring such a difficult trip?
Are you allowed to like talk to people?
Oh,
See them?
absolutely. Exactly. As a matter of fact, I mean, maybe I'll live stream. I hate live streaming, but maybe I'll live stream it, but definitely, yeah, absolutely talking to people. Let me phrase it differently. I'll have a Starlink on this, so I'll have full Wi-Fi connectivity or full internet connectivity the entire trip. So, not
Account for some energy for your Starlink.
So another half kilowatt hours a day there. So I think the next step up would be to follow the isotherm route. You seen this one? So someone's plotted out a route which takes you through all of the states of the US at the time that they hit 70 degrees. So you're just always at 70 degrees, you just make it work around the US.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, you know, you think of more and more trips like this, and then it, you know, a lot of people are going, well, could we as a race survive like on another planet or even the moon? And the question is, right now, we really don't know. We have not in any meaningful way tested the boundaries of how technology, and the reality is the people who have tested it or fiddled with that question have spent hundreds of millions of dollars, vast amounts of money to test it, because you got to set up specialized environments and all this sort of stuff. Well, okay, fine. I'm not really testing that, but I am at least saying, can technology be standalone? Can you break away from the grid in a meaningful way? And what is that? And how does that work? And in theory, like I say, I'm not going to do it, but somebody could spend a whole rest of their life driving around and staying off grid. So it's an interesting idea.
Okay, so more questions either online?
What are you gonna do after you finish your last mile?
Take a shower.
Or to Disney World.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so additional comment here from Mike. One of the principals in our small company working with commercial solar, we became aware of aerodynamic instabilities of dual axis trackers. Basic problem is at the center of the pressure is at 1/4 cord, so leads to the location of mechanical support. If a resonant vibration occurs, it is dynamically unstable as increasing angle of attack increases the load, driving the angle of attack larger. Make sure you can't sabotage your design, as it has caused serious problems. It's just possible. Increased robustness of your single axis tracking would more than pay for the stiffness required to have stability. This is stiffness driven, not strength driven.
Right.
So
a couple things on that actually. So yes, and I actually have considered, and I might still consider, again, one of the nice things about this is the panels themselves can be mounted to any tower design. So I can play with multiple towers. And I actually went through and I can show you pictures about 50 different tower designs. And I understand some of the issues because of the dual tracking. There's a few things about this particular design. One of the things I did is this is a perfectly balanced design. So the panels actually, basically there is the force required to rotate panels in both directions. Everything's perfectly balanced. And also the gear drives, both vertically and horizontally, are on axis. So it's came out to be a rather complicated mechanism, driving right up into the middle of the tubes. And again, if somebody's interested, I can show more about how that works. But the net effect of that is the amount of power to actually move it around and to keep it stable is very, very low. And in any arbitrary direction, doesn't matter how it's oriented, basically you put it in any orientation and it stays there. So a lot of that helps mitigate the issues. And again, the other thing that helps is this actually has a camera built into the top of it, partially to track the sky, to watch what the conditions are, because it has to know if a cloud's coming over, it has to know that power's going to go down, because it has to tell the car that. So this thing actually tracks, and it's got a GPS built into it. So it knows exactly where in the sky it's supposed to be and where in the sky it is. So if necessary, if it encounters any kind of error, it can correct for it.
So you're essentially tracking rain or shine, you're pointing it to where the sun is.
I've got both the GPS telling me where the sun is supposed to be, as well as looking at the sky and saying, well, if I don't see what I'm supposed to be seeing, then I got a problem. Because if you've got complete cloud cover, and it's interesting because there's actually a couple little solar tower things that you can buy that have a little, actually just a simple light sensor on it, and it goes, okay, where's the brightest spot, and I'll track to it. And they're completely and utterly useless because a cloud comes over and your flashlight becomes the brightest source, and the thing goes, zoom, and goes points at your or whatever. And so it's like, no, that doesn't work. So this knows where it's supposed to be, where the sun is in the sky, because it knows it's got full orientation, and then it looks at that, and then if something's wrong, then it can start complaining. So
do you have any precautions for if it's really windy?
yes, like I say, there's multiple layers of conditions. One thing is, and there's a eyelet on the bottom of it, and well, there's basically attachment points so that I basically can I've got a whole system where basically there's an auger, I'm basically a big screw, so I can screw that down in the ground, and I can basically attach this to the ground. And then also, like I say, it's got wind load sensors, so that basically if it senses that the wind is picking it up or from the wrong side, it can feather the whole thing into the wind. And then in the worst case, it'll basically set off an alarm and I have to go and take off the panels.
What if you end up, like one time we decided to go camping out around Midland, and we saw all these nice windmills. And then when we set up our tent, we just couldn't keep it from being blown away. So what if you end up in a place like that?
If I end up with some place, no, it's a good question. Let's say you have a day that's very windy. Okay, great. But like I say, I can take the panels and I can just put them directly on the ground and strap them down to the ground directly and not have the tower. So flexibility is a key element of the whole trip.
So how are you going to video your experience so it will be suitable for Nova or PBS?
Well, I'm hoping by the time I actually go to start this, that Netflix has already decided that this is going to be a cool thing. If anybody knows somebody at Netflix, that would be the easiest, because otherwise I've got to carry my own cameras and stuff, or have some volunteers follow along and video while I'm going along.
We'll be in the chase van with the,
Right.
with the gas grill, with steaks.
Yes, and you make sure
You're
you're
eating
eating upwind,
the ramen.
upwind for me. You're going to be eating upwind with the steaks upwind while I'm sitting there with mine.
No, be nice.
I have met someone who used to work at HBO. He might be good to talk to.
Yeah, HBO's good enough, I guess.
So a question on efficiency. You're talking about the efficiency of the charging system.
Yep.
What about the efficiency from the charger to the battery and then from the battery through the inverter, through the motor? What is your loss budget there?
From the, again, if we're using an AC, like we're level 2 charger, then we're inherently using the inverter built into the car. Okay. For the Teslas, my impression is they're about 95% efficient.
Okay, then the battery itself is going to spill off some heat while you're charging it. And it's going to spill off some more while you're discharging it. And,
Yes,
and
I think that's more or less, that's a good question.
so I guess where are
It's
you
more or
measuring?
less
You mentioned 230 watt hours per mile, I think.
that, yeah, that's
So
the
where's that
cumulative.
measured? That's coming out of the battery or then?
No, that is the cumulative behavior of the car overall that I'm measuring by watching, okay, by actually driving the car and saying, okay, I drove 100 miles and it required X watts.
Where did you measure the watts? Coming out of the wall?
Well, basically by the amount of power I have to put back into the car.
Okay.
So that's the cumulative efficiency of the car.
All right.
So yeah, the energy loss, the heat loss, and everything in the battery and everything
So all
else
of that
should
works
be
in
part of
your
that.
230.
Correct. 260 of us. Yeah. And again, I'm going to be running incremental tests. I'm going to do short runs and work my way up, and so I'll prove out fairly quickly if I screw something up in there.
One of the things that I did in my car, which is an EV conversion, is run some tests where I measure, now not at the wall, but at the battery output, the speed versus power out of the battery. And there's a curve which the airplane nuts would refer to sometimes as driving the bucket, flying the bucket. There's a point of maximum efficiency. There's a speed at which you get the maximum efficiency.
Right.
Are you going to try to hit that, or is your goal more to maintain the constant speed? Or?
Well, constant speed would definitely be good, but the answer is as slow as possible, so that the aerodynamics are at least to his point. The slower I can get, but the problem I face is at some point it's just not going to be safe to drive, because I will be on a freeway even if it's at 3 a.m. So realistically, I'm going to be limited in the efficiency.
Yeah, in my case, that minimum power was way too slow for the freeway. It's about 37 miles an hour.
Yeah. And that's again, I think where the optimizations of future people will vastly improve upon what I'm doing, I'm sure.
Okay, so any other burning questions?
I ask, can your solar panel support cooking system? Like for a long trip, about 14 days, it's really too long to just eat snacks.
Oh, yes, I'll definitely have some way of heating water and cooking.
And cooking.
Yes. In worst case, I can always have a separate panel for that, but I can pull some power off this very easily. Honestly, I'll probably cheat and I'll probably just hook up AC, a regular AC hot pot or something straight to the output of one of the towers, because I've got AC power. I can just. It's not
worst case. You skip a day, right?
Yeah, it'll eat from the budget, but it's not that.
Hopefully you have a little extra, so there's a possibility of completing the charge and still having a little sun in the sky.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that's when you cut it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Determine whether it's going to be
Cold food or hot food that day. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
How much sun you got?
That's one thing. It's actually, in theory, what I need is about 8 kilowatts of power. In reality, the cells that I've got are proving to be a little more efficient than I thought, and everything combined, I'll end up probably being more like 10 kilowatts. So I'll have spare energy.
I'm
What is
changing
your,
the subject here. Showing the different solar.
Yeah, we want to wrap up this topic, Larry. We really appreciate it. And of course, provided your contact info so people can contact you that way. As I mentioned, this is being recorded, so you can all go look online after Colin does his magic and posts. We've recorded here today. So yeah, so Belinda, we want to come over and talk about other ways of power.
If you would like to park your car and enjoy a nice dinner, this is the way to go. So my name is Belinda Gomez. I live here in Houston, and I buy and sell unique equipment. This is just one of the units that I have. It is a Beam Arc 2020 fully solar powered EV charger. It has a 40-watt battery.
40 kilowatt.
Thank you, 40 kilowatt battery. It's completely portable. It has no trenching and no wiring. And it also doesn't take up any space, any true space, because you can actually, you're supposed to park underneath the solar panel itself. Also, just like you talked about chasing the sun, this particular machine also, I believe it's every 10 minutes, adjusts itself to capture the most sun available. This particular unit also has emergency charge. So there's a whole panel where you can plug in a diabetes or an oxygen tank during emergencies. Some cities own these and will deploy it with their emergency services for places that are out of no power, which happens a lot here in Houston.
Why do you have this thing?
So I am a industrial asset broker. So I buy and sell large equipment. I like big toys, I guess. So I got just an amazing deal on this. It's an awesome piece of equipment. The fact that it doesn't have any trenching and any wiring, I'm also a real estate agent here in Houston. And for a while, EV and solar panels just weren't really embraced by real estate agents because of the finances that got a lot of homeowners in trouble. So the fact that it can be moved anywhere without being hooked to any building is a really awesome piece of equipment.
Is that it? Oh,
That's it. So it's so portable. One person pulls in, they have a special trailer. From your phone, you let the hydraulics down. They're controlled by hydraulics, just like this. They back it up, they drop the hydraulics, load it up. It's a one-person job, in and out and about.
You don't have the trailer.
I do not have the trailer, but I have been in talk. I've touched base with Beam, so I have a Beam contact and a representative. It's not terribly costly to move them, just depending on how far you're going, but just a couple of.
It's in Galveston.
It is currently in Galveston. It was used to charge one Ford F-150 for maybe a year. And then they got rid of the truck, and since then it's just
By the Coast Guard.
by the Coast Guard.
Army Corps.
Army Corps of Engineers, yeah. Yeah. Did anybody have any questions?
Much does it?
yeah, how much?
Well, would love to sell it to someone here, so we didn't have to make it travel. I probably somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000, just depending on where it needed to be delivered to, which is a huge impact on the delivery cost. But I also am getting a quote from a third party to move it. Really, if you know what you're doing with the hydraulics and all of that, you could probably move it with a really good forklift and a trailer. They have a trailer. That's what I would recommend. Again, it's not that expensive and it can be parked anywhere. Rice actually has one.
Yes, I was gonna say, they have, I've seen the one on the Rice campus.
Yeah.
There's one at Johnson Space Center too. at the back
Okay.
gate.
See, and we could have one in your backyard. You know, this would be really great for any business. I have a few places that I could park it. You could also monetize it. It's a level 2 charging station. It can be monetized if that's the way you want it.
What would it cost me to transport it out to Big Bend and put it at my favorite trailer? I think I quoted it for 150 miles and also for 7 hours of loading, unloading, and it came in about $7,000. So if you keep it safe or close, it's not as much. I bet we could get it to Big Bend. But if we had these scattered across the US and hard to get places, it would make taking your vehicles to those places easier, because the trenching and the wiring can get very expensive, have to get approvals.
And also in very metropolitan areas, it's hard to start digging up the sidewalk and to put in some EV chargers. And so this makes any parking lot accessible to some. I am not a beam representative. I would like to be known. I just, I sell big equipment, and so this is how I came across this.
Okay, Belinda, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
That's good. All right, so, we talked about both Colin and John showing some photos of the Electro Expo. So Colin, did you want to show yours first or ask John to show his first?
Let's let John go.
Okay. Are you there, John?
Hey, guys. Okay, you can see me now.
No one has to speak around.
Yep.
So
So yeah, I was gonna show like an update on my project.
It's got a hot mic, okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing an EV conversion. Can you see it better like this, or you see better like this?
Like that's good, yeah.
Okay. So I finally received the rear axles for this project. So this is a Tesla motor in a pickup truck, and I have a motor in the front and a motor in the rear. And so in the rear, I'm going with a little bit different axle. And so that's what you're seeing right now. So this is the axle itself. This is the stub that goes into the hub that the wheel bolts to. And then this is the CV. And so this is a 930 CV is what this is called. It originally was developed by Porsche for the 930. And so in the off-road world and the custom CV world, they use these a lot. So you got one CV for this side, then you got the boot, and then you got the boot and the CV for the other side, and then there's another flange that goes into the Tesla unit. And those are in the drive unit now, so that's why it's not here. And then these are the bolts. And so I'm just waiting on another set of bolts here because I have metric bolts on this side, which is great. And then I have American bolts on this side. So that's awesome. And then I was just going to give a little update on the project itself. So I don't remember last time what we talked about, but this is my workshop. And there's the 510 that is electric. And this is the truck that I'm working. So this is the charger in this box, and I covered it. I also finished the cooling. So this is all the cooling right here, and it goes around. And then this is the high voltage from the battery to the rear motor. So that's the rear motor. And of course, there's the flange that I was just talking about right there. That's in the motor. So, and then there's the axle I created. I also finished the charge port. So that's finally done. So here's the charge port, so now I can charge it. So, and like I said, the cooling system is done now, and so it works. I have one pump there, and then another pump in the front with the radiator. You can't see. Anyway, there's the front motor, and then the radiator, and there's the other pump. Oh well, too dark. Anyway, that's the update on the truck.
Fantastic.
My workshop. Oh, I was gonna show this actually. I bought this. So this is a hybrid off-grid inverter. So it can take 48 volts in for battery. Or it can also take in up to 500 volts of solar. So anyway, I'm gonna start piddling with that.
There you go, Larry.
I was gonna say. Bigger.
How much does?
All right, John, that's great. So exciting.
Yep. So now I'm gonna switch over to
Williams phone. Wow. Great thing.
Okay, Astra.
okay. I'm gonna stop the video.
Want me to go?
Okay, so y'all can see the pictures now?
Yeah.
Nope. Okay, y'all can see the pictures now?
Yes. Bucky's.
Is the box of my face, is that still on there?
Yeah. Well, it's a box with little head and shoulders, yeah.
An icon.
That's all right. Yeah, if you put it up in the corner, that's so covering a little bit, yeah. Oh.
That stinks, I can't get rid of that box.
All good.
It's fine.
You're fine.
We see the vast majority of the photo.
Yeah, okay. So these are the photos from last year in November when I went to the Electrify Expo in Austin. So I'm gonna go through them probably pretty fast. There's a good amount of pictures, but so this is the drive over there. So we're charging at the new Magic Dock chargers at Bucky's. And so that was pretty good. They got a lot of chargers and there was a lot of different cars charging. That was an Ioniq 6 that came in. This is at Bastrop. And so it worked pretty good if you guys have used those. This is where we stayed actually in Austin. In this little trailer. That was great. Yep, that's where we stayed. Yep, that's us again. Oh, this is where we ate breakfast. That's my dad.
Yeah. Good to see you there, Fred. Oh, you're signed in online too.
Yep, he's having a hearty meal. Okay, so now we got to the Electrify Expo. So this was at the Circuit of the Americas racetrack. And so, you know, I just took a bunch of random pictures, so they're going to be pretty random.
It's fine.
This thing was pretty sweet.
Ooh, yeah.
I was at the Shell booth. So the way that they were doing it was you would stand in line inside the pit, and then the cars that you could drive or ride in would come up to the pit, and then you would swap. You know, people would get out and then you get in, so you could drive all sorts of stuff. And so this is when I was driving the Lucid. So I drove probably that one. Actually, I think on the Lucid, yeah, it wasn't on the track. It was on a just a regular road around the Circuit of America's campus. This is the next car we rode in. This was the Polestar, and this one we couldn't drive. We had a driver. So the lady is a representative. No, you know what? This is the Volvo. Did I take a picture of the outside of that car? Anyway, so she's driving it on the track, which was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was the Volvo, the C40. And so you had to sign a waiver for all these things. Okay, so this was the e-bike area. And so there's Andrew. He was about to get on the e-bike. And then now Andrew's gone. And there was my dad on an e-bike with his hat. There he goes. Good job, Dad.
Yeah, definitely.
It was pretty fun. As you can see, there was a lot of e-bikes and stuff there. That was pretty cool. Yep, cargo bikes. This is the mod bike section. Oh, this is the one that had the sidecar.
Oh.
Maybe you guys can guess what we did with it. And sign a waiver. Boom. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried. I couldn't fit in there. So you know, my dad did it. Pretty funny. All right, is this the Polestar? I want to say this is where we did the Polestar. Yeah, the Polestar 3. I'm pretty sure I drove the Polestar. And so you can see that they also had the that one right there is the Chevy, the Hummer EV. So you could drive those. I didn't drive a Hummer EV. This is the Polestar. I was really into the wheels. Yep, really into the wheels that day. So this was us about to get on the track with it. They were telling us that we weren't allowed to take pictures. Oh, okay. So these were dirt bikes, electric dirt bikes. They were pretty sweet. You could test drive those. They were pretty aggressive. We didn't do it, but they were pretty cool. Yeah, then they had the UTVs up there. You could drive that one. Oh, and they had those like UTV golf cart things.
The miniature Hummer.
Yeah. This thing was pretty interesting. It's like a stand-up ATV.
Kinds of ideas of vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, flash drive. They do conversions, and so they had a handful of conversions there. They had the DeLorean. There's actually 2 DeLoreans there. Which I thought was pretty surprising. Yeah, this is a Speedster. This was by flash drive. That one was very clean. They did a really good job on that one.
Nice.
It was.
This one was pretty good. The Subaru Brat. This one was a little more open. You can kind of see what's going on. I like that personally. That's a hyperdrive, a Hyper 9 motor connected to the transmission with the controller on top. It's an AC motor. They have regen. Okay, this one was probably one of the best conversions I'd ever seen. I got a lot of pictures of this one, but this one had a large Tesla drive unit kind of underneath that battery box right there. The charger in the rear plate, behind the rear plate, or the charging port. Yeah, this is the Chevelle. So that's a battery box in the front. They had everything working. They had heat, air conditioning, cooling. They were cooling everything. This was Oh, and you can even see the Bosch eye booster up in the upper right. So that was electric brake booster, and it had power steering. There's the AC compressor. And I really like these. This is stepping down a radiator hose, and I like these couplers. They're heat activated, so it's not like a regular clamp. I thought that was pretty clean. Power grips. Yep, power grips. Yeah, the Chevelle was pretty sweet. So this was done by a school, and then they auctioned this car off after this. But you had to be resident of the state that this was done in, so I wasn't allowed to enter. Here we go, raffle tickets. 69 Chevelle. And so it had like a full, so you can see the EV controls, iPad dash right there. And then, like I said, so it has a 500 horsepower large Tesla drive unit from Model S. And then they had a full Model S battery pack. So it was a very powerful car. So it's talked about the full restoration of the car, some details about it. And then, yeah, it was done by, I think Mind Drive was the name of the group. Yeah, it was a great conversion. Anyway, this is the other DeLorean. Up, and this is Cybertruck. Okay, this is the Lucid drivetrain. So it says down there 670 horsepower out of this package. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yep, I was really into it. This is the Lucid, one of the Lucid battery modules. Pretty compact. This is the Lucid power conversion system. Also very compact. You know, Lucids are 800 volts. This was the end of that day. And this was us leaving. That was the first day. And then we went and ate. Yeah. Pretty sweet. That was my sandwich. We went to Hoover's. Man, look at that. Buttermilk pie, chocolate cream pie, coconut cream pie. Oh, man, it's amazing. So good. Oh, I saw Waymo while we were in downtown Austin.
What is it?
I'd never seen one of those before. Self-driving car. So this is the second day, and I wasn't taking a picture of the F-150, I swear. It was, oh, I was taking it that you could actually see downtown Austin from where we were at. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so this was the Mach-E track. This was the dirt track right outside of the entrance to the main gate. So you basically had to do this first or last. And they had two professional drivers, and this is the Mach-E Rally. And the driver would take you around this course and kind of throw you around, and it was awesome.
Good. A little acceleration there.
Yeah.
You live to tell about it. All right.
Yeah, those seatbelts are working overtime for sure. I was up out of my seat on that one. Me and my dad were in the back seat. I think Andrew was in the front seat. Or wait, no, Andrew was only there the first day. So it was some random dude that was in the front seat.
it's interesting that this Electrify Expo, there's a lot of performance oriented race cars and also modifications, aftermarket products, you know, that. Because we all know that when 18-year-old males, as soon as they buy a car, they gotta change it, right?
Yeah, we kept trying to figure out which driver was more aggressive, the white one or the yellow one. But yeah, the donut one right there, the donut was pretty cool. Yeah, so it's going around in multiple donuts. Yeah, it doesn't look terribly aggressive on the video, but it was pretty awesome. I took so many videos because it was a lot of fun. That was inside actually, um, of the Maki rally. Yeah, so this is us finishing that and going back over to the course. So these are just people doing test drives on the Circuit of the Americas track. What's this, a Rivian?
See Rivian there too.
What did you say, Dave?
Good to see Rivian there too.
Oh yeah, Rivian. Yeah, Rivian had a good presence there. This is the new Tacoma. I hadn't really seen one before this. This is the iForce Max, and it is a hybrid. And I thought it was pretty interesting. Very expensive. I think it's over 50 grand. Everyone's copying Tesla with a screen now. So this is a Maki rally. Of course, they had the front filled with water and ice, or giving away water. This is the Maki motor. I thought it was pretty interesting. They had this cutaway of the motor with the controller on top. This is pretty fun. Yep, I was pretty excited about it. Very excited about it, I was. Oh, this was the brakes. So this pretty big Brembo brakes on the rally. Man, I was really excited about that. Man, look at that. The diff is bolted right to the back of the motor. Very interesting. That's the Maki Rally is the highest trim. Oh well, this was the trim levels on the Makis. Okay, here you go, the Tesla boss. I was like, look at that butt. Anyway, that's all I got of the Tesla robot. Anyway, it was pretty neat. This is the Lucid booth. That's the Gravity, I think. Showing off what it looks like. Oh, 800 horsepower. Why not? Yeah, it is interesting the way that they did the trunk. Actually, all Lucids are kind of interesting on the way they did the trunk. Yep, interesting. Yep, I was really into that. They had a lot of tire booths actually. Hancock was there with their Ion EV specific tires. I thought that was pretty interesting. They had a really big booth. Okay, here's the DeLorean. Finally, I got back to that second DeLorean. So this was a Moment car, and it was outstanding. Moment really does really pretty conversions. So this is also a Hyper 9, and then the battery boxes are next to it. They're Tesla Model S modules. But it was great. I like that you can actually see what's going on, whereas the other DeLorean had a cover over it where you couldn't really see anything about the motor. That was a great conversion. It looked really good. The front, they just had a moment box, but very clean conversion. Okay, here's another Mach-E. I don't know if this is a rally, but they definitely made it a rally. They put like everything you could on this car. It has the rally spoiler and fender flares. Pretty aggressive. Oh man, this car was awesome. I didn't have the appreciation for this car at this moment when I was taking these pictures, even though I took a lot of pictures of this. This is a Model S Plaid, the 1,000 horsepower car. And this guy is in Austin, and he has a channel called EV Smoke. So that's what he calls this car, EV Smoke, and it has this multicolor wrap on it. And then yes, he did a delete on the rear, so it doesn't have rear seats, it has gauge. But it's a track focused car, and I really was impressed by his wheels and tires. And he drives around with a chute on the back all the time. This is a parachute, a quarter-mile drag racing. And it's very, I mean, I really like all the mods he's done to this car. I mean, he has the big brake track upgrade for it, where you can go over 200 miles an hour. And then of course this wrap, you know, the multicolor rainbow wrap. It's a really great looking car. And
All right, why don't we finish up with it right there? If you have others, we can do another meeting, John. So I'd like to thank you again, Larry, for all the great info that you shared about your planning here for traveling like on Mars. So if we can get. That's wonderful. So second Thursday next month in July, we'll have another meeting here. See.
Yeah, Electrify Expo is in Dallas this year. It's in November. It's a local, I don't know what that is. But FYI, it is a show where you can test drive almost anything electric.
Okay.
It's well worth it if you're into it.
And it'll be November again?
Yeah, the exact dates are in the start PowerPoint thing.
Okay, the PowerPoint pages. Okay, yeah, so but there's some time. Good to know that it's Dallas and not Austin this year.
Yes.
Okay, and any other final comments, and we'll wrap it up? All right, thanks, everybody.
So, Larry, John here on the end says he knows someone who could handle the documentation. Okay.
There's a couple of people I could talk to.
Oh, okay, well, you both in the room, so before anybody leaves.
I also have business cards here that I can give you as well.
Very good. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
So next spring is not so, I'm thinking, maybe another year.
Yeah, I know.
Be nice if it's this, but yeah.
Too much information, yeah.
Nice talk.
You guys are good. Everybody's like, oh,
Right.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Yes, yes, all right.
Well, what I have is, I actually have a, there's four that I have. And it does both the NOC. So we have the. Yeah, it's nice. It's like a.
Yes.
You can always join on.
Because that's the thing.
Yes.
See you tomorrow?
Yes.
I have a pile of microinverters in my garage.
Most of the Nobleman wouldn't work well like this. So this one. And I've got access, it's actually got.
Right, yeah.
I can read, it actually goes bi-directional, and I can figure everything out.
Okay.
What kind of fire device is this? What kind of fire device?
See you next month.
Actually, it's a combination, most of them are